Hello world, and welcome to our third episode of Fantasy Football. This week we'll be talking about mostly the review of last game week. I'm sure many of you have been disappointed with your captaincy choices, given the sheer number of people with Aguero and Zlatan, but we'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. So we've got White Wolf here with me, straight out of Detroit. He's made the journey again to be a part of the video. Any words to start us off?
Disappointment.
Disappointed.
To put it in one word.
All right. Well, we'll start with the jackety wrapping.
Yeah, let's talk about
what a turn of events.
Yeah, they should have won. They scored two. They should have been up 2-0. The goal was disallowed due to offside, which is, I don't know how you could put the flag up, to be honest. Again, they dominated a majority of the game. Spurs looked good for about maybe 20 minutes. They pick up an equaliser, and when that happened, I was actually pretty confident that they'd go on and sneak a 90th minute winner.
Tottenham?
Tottenham, yeah. I don't know, really frustrating. They have shown glimpses in the first three games of some real quality. And here we are going into week 4 with, 4 points now. But, you know, we've had 3 away games, 2 against real quality opposition, and one we lost against, you know, a mid-table type team. But, look, hopefully moving forward, there's certainly glimpses. They've dominated most of the 3 games.
I think possession was they'd be close to 60%.
Yeah.
Mostly because of what happened with Burnley.
Well, yeah, that's right.
About 80%.
But see, with Burnley game, they never look likely to score. I'm gonna have to turn that off. Not bad.
That's all good.
Would you just keep talking and then?
Well, I got it all done.
Yeah, no, with Burnley, they never looked that likely to score. I thought with Spurs, they really played the sort of football that was likely to lead to goals, and it did. And again, as I said, if the goal is allowed, that's 2-0, and I'd like to think the game's over. So to go to White Hart Lane and get a point is not a atrocious result, but the way they played, they sort of deserved more, I thought. So,
it's interesting. It's funny because we talk about Arsenal and Liverpool. You being a big Liverpool fan and me being a big Arsenal fan. Obviously, after losing 4-3, every week I've highlighted to you what the funny coincidences are.
yeah.
Now the goals scored and against has flipped.
Yes.
You guys have conceded 6 and scored 5. We've scored 6 and conceded 5.
Right.
So we're on the same points, but I think you guys are the
scoring a lot of goals, but conceding far too many to be a top 4 team.
The only way you guys are a top 4 team at your current rate is having Suarez.
Yeah.
So obviously
we need to be scoring 4 a game at this point.
Exactly. So you'll have defensive problems, but there'll be enough goals to get you by for most of the games. That should get you in the Champions League. Talk to me about Champions League. Do you think Liverpool will make it?
I mean, I think that's the best case scenario.
After the second game, you had said we've seen it all, and we've truly seen it all.
Yeah, well,
we've seen 3 games.
Yeah, 3 games, 3 different results. Look, I think that's best case scenario though, and it is early. There's a long way to go. I think we're as good a chance. I think there's a real quality 3 teams in the league this season, and you look at how much money they've spent in the window, and the 3 teams are. I think there's going to be a decent battle for 4th. So I think we're in it. Are we favourites for it? Probably not. But
I'd like to say Arsenal are favourites for it.
I think most people would.
Yeah. Tottenham it's always good fun having Tottenham around because they'll throw themselves into everything and they never finish.
Yeah.
So it gives us something to sleep nicely.
Right.
Maybe we should get some Tottenham people to join us in one day.
Yeah, we could do that. I know a couple.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we could do one via Skype with Al in
We
Korea.
can, get one, get it done in Korea.
Exactly.
Sure, I'd be happy with that.
All right, we'll move on to how we went. I think disappointing all around, which actually resulted in some big movements in our league, primarily because of the strikers. But I'll start off. Most similar to large proportion of FPL managers, I suffered from my captaincy choice. I had Sergio Aguero. Most people had Zlatan, so those two were the most highly captain players over the week. Neither of them delivered, 2 points each, so clearly that had an impact. Captaincy, points are so hard to come by. Captaincy makes a huge difference.
Well, it wins your comps, captaincy decisions.
Yeah, definitely. So I ended up with 44 points, my lowest so far. Wasn't too happy with it. It was good to see Vardy score a goal.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking of transferring him out. So last week what I did was I brought in Hazard, great addition. He gave me 11 points, and I was thinking of getting rid of Vardy because I was my rationale was Everton have a great schedule coming up. Time to get on Lukaku now.
Yep.
And I really thought about whether to take a -4 hit.
Okay. That would have
And
been
do
frustrating for you to.
Exactly, but then. In retrospect, I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah.
But at that time, I was certain because I was like, Vardy is not performing at this stage. It could be a hangover from last season's championship run.
Yeah.
So my reasoning was, let's do it. Take the 4 points. Hopefully Lukaku scores a goal. But then he has to score at least a goal to
break even. And that's if Vardy doesn't score. If Vardy scores, then you're well behind.
Because if Vardy plays and just performs, he gives you 2 points. So I need him to give me 6.
Yeah.
He has to score and obviously get his appearance points. So that was I thought about that, but then I decided against it. I said I'll wait.
Yeah.
Especially with the international break coming, and I think that played out really well, even though I only got 44 points. So for my team, defense also worked. It was a balanced attack this week, so I've got the two United guys, Shaw and De Gea. They gave me 6 points each. Hazard and Vardy 11 and 8. So that's about 31 out of my 44 points. Other than that, all I got is 2s and 1s.
Yeah.
I had a couple of players get yellow cards. So 4 players gave me 70% of my points this week.
Yeah.
Had I had a captain who gave me good points, I think I would have done well. But obviously that didn't happen, so.
Yeah, I guess on the captaincy thing, we touched on it last week where it's such a risk to not go with the likes of Aguero and Zlatan and Ibrahimovic.
Yeah, I should have gone with my differential choice because I remember at the end I said Hazard.
Yeah, that's true. And that bit, on the flip side of that risk, there's such a huge bonus on whoever it was that selected other players, pending that they scored more than 2 points, of course.
Yeah.
But that's the benefit of doing that, the risk versus reward. I mean, you have to weigh it up. How often are Ibrahimovic and Aguero not going to be scoring?
Exactly.
I mean, at that point, it's pretty low chance. But in the times that they do that and the player that you choose does perform well, then you're ahead of almost everyone in the world in the captaincy decision.
Well, I think that's exactly right, and I agree with that. Oddly enough, because of my points, I went down 20,000 spots overall. Still 224,000 in the world. So I'm still lingering
about
around just over the
1.2 million places higher than me on the ladder at the moment.
Yeah, so I mean it's good that I'm still in the 6th. Shout out to Drake. It's just over. But more importantly, in our league, which has become very highly competitive, I'm down to 5th.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of changes with that. Unfortunately, we'll hopefully have a bounce back week. Talk to me about your team. 27 points.
Yeah, it was
a rather interesting week for you.
It was a disgraceful week, to be honest. I mean, I had one player that scored more than 2 points, and that was Leighton Baines, who actually missed a penalty.
Right.
So figure that out. He finished with 7 points, and you know, players like Zaha didn't start. He got 25 minutes. Martial even is kind of hasn't hit the peaks that I was expecting for
Yeah,
his
he
value.
had a great game week 1.
Yeah, and then I don't know. I feel like he's sort of almost isolated out on the wing at the moment. If that changes moving forward, I don't know, but it's certainly something to look at moving forward.
I think what was a bit concerning was he got subbed.
Yeah, 59 minutes, and that's a relatively early sub as well in the scheme of things. So,
well, hence the 1 point.
Yeah. So look,
another minute, you'd have got another point.
Yeah, how
60 minutes.
That was my game week. That just shows. Look, I'm now down to 1.4 million out of 3.7. So, and about 40 points from first place in our league. So I've had the one benefit, I didn't make a transfer last week, and it could be a good decision. But the reason that I didn't was to make 2 transfers after the international break and bring in Aguero.
And you could capitalise on the transfer window, which
right?
we'll touch
on shortly. But then the questions now arise over Aguero about whether, is he going to miss time? A, he's got a knock. I think it's calf or hamstring. And then there's the potential for up to a 3-match ban for his elbow. Right. So, that was my theory behind not making a move last week, and then I'm left with 27 points. And if I now move forward without the ability to necessarily pick up Aguero, then was it all for nothing? So
I'll give you a tip. Sanchez. Okay, so moving on to talking points. The first thing I want to talk to you about is, I think personally we've both criticised the performance of midfielders a little bit. Considering the price range, we have had previously Alexis Sanchez, the most expensive player outside of Zlatan and Aguero. You could argue rightfully so, because he does score in bundles. Mm-hmm. Last week was a clear example. What do you think held the midfielders back all this while? Because this week there was some amazing performances from the midfielders.
Yeah, it looks like
particularly Sanchez, Sterling. Hazard has been consistent.
Still been good. Yeah.
He's been consistent this season. We had Özil, obviously came through. William.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's 1 week, but it looks like, and I think particularly with someone like Aguero being out for a period of time, it looks like the best option for people that have him, rather than just sit him on the bench, is to move him on and bring one of these high-priced midfielders. It looks like they might be back.
Yeah, definitely.
Slow start for a lot of them. Hazard's been pretty good from week 1.
Yeah, Hazard's been giving points consistently. He's had a goal or an assist. So he's been contributing attacking points in some form, whether it's assist or goals. Sanchez was obviously drawing blanks.
We did pick a slow start for him though, to be fair.
Yeah, we did.
He's had a lot of football, and I probably want to see him over the next couple of weeks continue with that form before I bring him in, just because he is so expensive. But
well, the good thing with that is his value. He was priced at 11 because of his slow start. If people reacted quickly, so he went down to 10.9. Mm-hmm. He's already gone up to 11, so he's at his base price again. So you don't really have to rush into it.
No.
But I think a lot of people, including myself, who have Aguero, who have had Aguero, it's not someone to consider. I honestly feel that way. He can give you those points. The only risk is if he does have an off week. That's 11 million, over 10% of your cap. That's not.
But I mean, the same goes for the likes of Ibrahimovic and Aguero, who had 2 points each last week. So
I think a lot of people got burnt with that captaincy.
Oh, for sure. I think 80% of the world playing the game had either of the two. But I think Arsenal's, and we'll touch on it shortly, but Arsenal's schedule coming up, it looks like, someone in the Arsenal midfield anyway would be a nice little get for that next, say, 4-6 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, that leads us to another candidate who did well, was Özil. Because he's not going to give you 20 points. It's highly unlikely. He's not going to score 2 goals. But he'll consistently give you assists. I mean, last season there was a clear example of how he just kept plodding away, and chipping in and giving assists every game, and every now and then he'd throw in a goal. With the price difference, 11 versus 9.5, there could be something to consider, particularly if you want to somehow manage a team that you have Aguero, Zlatan, and Özil. I mean,
Yeah.
Most fantasy managers would take that.
Well, you're not. Well, you're not going to be able to have Sanchez and the two strikers. But you'll be able to work around having the two strikers and then someone like Ozil. And I think his ceiling isn't as high as someone like Sanchez. As you said, I don't see him getting the big 18, 20 point weeks, but he's fairly consistent.
Yeah.
He's a key part of that rotation, and I just think that particularly if you are going to bring someone from the Arsenal midfield, the next, say, 6 weeks is probably their best schedule of the season. So I'd absolutely be bringing in one of the two, and I'm actually leaning more towards someone like Ozil just for the 1.5 difference in price. Gives you a bit of flexibility to do a couple other things.
Definitely, I think he's definitely a great player. He's proven himself. He's won a World Cup. He's not shy of big moments. As long as he's fit and healthy, he'll stay engaged, and I think there's always room for points. So he'd probably be my pick of the litter. Alright, let's talk about defense for a while. They've done quite well in the last 3 game weeks. Talk to me about people who have had West Brom. West Brom of defenders. West Brom has 2 clean sheets, the same as Man United.
Yeah.
A lot of people have got Man United defenders. I did myself, and I was expecting good things, and I've been rewarded with the points because I've got De Gea and Shaw. But people who go on the cheaper option and got West Brom, what do you feel like?
Oh, there's
do you think it's an anomaly, or do you think there might be?
There was a lot of talk about their defence leading into Game Week 1. I think a lot of people have a West Bromwich defender, and at a price that's a bit better than enables a bit more flexibility. Even if it's just $500,000 to $1 million difference between the Premier 6 million type players.
Definitely.
And they've been rewarded. There was a lot of talk that they were going to be a pretty strong defensive outfit, and they've proven to be pretty correct. I didn't go with any. I'm considering bringing in a defender now from them, even if it's just a lower priced one, just to sort of have as the fourth defender.
Yeah.
Now I was saving the extra transfer that I built up to bring in Aguero this week, so I obviously won't be doing that with what's happened. I think there could be a move where you could move one of your higher priced defenders for a West Brom
I think
option.
That's
save some money.
That's a really good option, because you get Man United defender 6. You get a West Brom one for 4.5. So that's 1.5 there. And then if you do the Özil and Sanchez thing, you've got another 1.5. So you just made yourself 3 million in cap space.
Yeah.
Which enables you to have a still reasonably deep team with Aguero and Zlatan, who just prove that every week they're going at each other, which leads us to them. They've got the same amount of points, same amount of goals, everything. They are together. They've both scored 24 points this week so far in Fantasy Premier League. They head to head. Who do you think wins the battle? Obviously, it changes that dynamic with Aguero being suspended for a little while.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I know my decision to have Ibrahimovic over Aguero was simply, A, financially, but B, I didn't trust the fact that he would be playing a big chunk of the season. Aguero. So I didn't think it would come from suspension. I would have. I was more in line with injuries or something like that.
That's right.
But yeah, he'll miss a couple of games now, and the guys that sort of did have him have been rewarded for having him after his early start. But then there's a lot of questions that need to be answered over the next 2 or 3 weeks to see, A, how do you move on from him in the meantime, and then how do you bring him back without using, say, 4 points for 2 transfers.
And the fact that there's a lot of people have Zlatan, and this gives everyone an opportunity to bring Zlatan, given his suspension. What do you think people would do because they're playing each other this week. It's the Manchester derby.
Yeah, it is.
That does make it a bit more difficult, doesn't it?
Well, I think probably the easiest thing to do would be if you've only got Aguero and you don't have Ibrahimovic, is you almost need to be making that clean swap.
Yeah, definitely.
Keeping the money in the bank of the difference, and then if you really still want Aguero over Ibrahimovic in 3 weeks' time, make that same trade in reverse.
Definitely. Who wins the battle? The fantasy battle between Zlatan and Aguero?
Well, I'm hoping...
I'll throw you a meaningless stat. After he finishes his suspension in game week 5, because they obviously have another game against Swansea, but that's not in the Premier League. He would have missed 40% of the season. Yeah.
Wow. And it's quite an expensive player to
miss the
to miss that. So, look, I bet on Ibrahimovic, and I'm pretty happy with.
You think he wins the battle at the end of the season? Well, even if you weigh out 5 points.
That's right. You weigh out the price is what sold me, and you calculate it at a price per point. I think Ibrahimovic is going to have a higher number. Yeah. So, but I think it'll be close, and as I said, my goal is to be bringing in Aguero this week. Yeah. So I think moving forward, you want to be having both of them when Aguero does come back. And hey, maybe this break enables him to have a longer season without injury. It's only early in the season, but a couple-week break.
Yeah, definitely. He did do Copa America and all, so it certainly adds up, particularly players like him who are injury prone. So. Yeah. We'll move on to the man of the hour. He's given the most points, more than Zlatan and Aguero, even though they've taken all the news. Hazard, is he back?
Looks like it. It absolutely looks like it. Chelsea are playing pretty good brand of football, and he's sort of headlining it all. So he had a horrendous season last, especially at the price that he just had at it.
Which is one of the reasons why there's such a big gap between him and Sanchez.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, he's the kind of player, and it sure does look like he's back to his old self. He's the kind of guy you'd be contemplating bringing in at worst for the next couple of weeks while Aguero's out in that sort of replacement role, for sure.
Yeah, I think he's definitely back in my books. 3 games into the season, he's given the most fantasy points. He's in. It's as simple as that. What do you think of, in terms of bonus points, do you know that 3 out of the top 4 players in bonus points are from Man United?
I didn't know that, no.
Not bonus points, as in the total bonus points accumulated.
Yeah.
So it's Zlatan, obviously. Mm-hmm. But then it's not Martial.
No.
It's not Luke Shaw. It's not Pogba, obviously, and it's not Rooney. It's Blind and Eric Bailey, the defender.
Yeah, right.
So he's been making a lot of attacking runs.
Yeah,
and he's been giving a lot of points, and I think it's kind of gone under the radar because I've got Shaw. A lot of people have Valencia, and they have given very good attacking returns. But in the meanwhile, Eric Bailey has given the most. I was actually surprised when I saw that. Well, I was surprised to see Blind in there.
Yeah.
I was surprised to see Blind and Bailey.
What's Bailey priced?
I'm not too sure. I think he's expensive, not cheap.
Yeah.
All Man United defenders are the higher price, so they're 5.5.
But I mean, he might be $500,000 cheaper than, I don't know, another option that you've already got at the back. And yeah, I to be honest, I don't know a lot about him, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, that's an interesting stat, and I certainly wouldn't have guessed it.
Yeah, definitely. I was surprised. I was surprised when I saw that. So it does may give you things that you need to consider. Obviously, with the suspension, there are managers who would have thrown in the wild card.
Yeah, I think a lot.
Let me tell you. Would you rather at this stage do a Sanchez for Aguero, for example? So you do a Sanchez, but we know, which we're going to talk about. Arsenal's fixtures are going to be good. So would you do a Sanchez and perhaps a Willian from Chelsea, who's only 7.4, and he does take set pieces. He did score a goal over the last game week.
Mm-hmm.
He was the best performer for Chelsea last season in a terrible season. Would you do that option, or would you go down a Hazard? And perhaps another Arsenal player. Obviously, a Hazard and Özil would cost you more because Özil's cheaper.
Yeah. I definitely think that an Arsenal midfielder is a must. For the moment, though, I tend to, and I probably sometimes wait too long and miss the boat, but I do like to see Sanchez put together 2 or 3 good performances, scoring points, then before I sort of jump on that bandwagon. And look, sometimes you do lose your 0.1, 0.2.
You're a man who's known not to buy into the hype.
No, I wait.
We could start a side tangent on basketball right now.
Well, yeah,
There's a certain 13-year veteran whose hype may not.
It annoys me. Yeah, no, I don't get too excited about the hype. What the press sort of put out there for them. So look,
that's good.
I am seriously thinking about Ozil, but there's 3 that I'm probably thinking about, and that is the likes of Hazard, Ozil, and Sanchez.
Definitely.
I don't think you can necessarily go wrong. It does depend on how much sort of cap you've got and who you're moving. Look, if you're moving Aguero for a couple of weeks, then you've got more than enough for any of the 3.
That's exactly right.
You then have to weigh up schedules between the 2, and Arsenal's is looking pretty good, so I'd be leaning towards one of the 2 Arsenal sort of.
Without a doubt, I completely agree. I think to navigate the next few game weeks, you need to have an Arsenal or Chelsea midfielder. It's as simple as that. If you don't, you leave yourself open to seriously falling behind. It's a must. You need to have either Hazard,
With Chelsea, though, probably the main reason I'd be leaning towards an Arsenal player is Chelsea play Arsenal and Liverpool in 2 of the next 3 weeks. So
they've got one hard game.
Yeah, the Liverpool one. Yeah,
I had to throw it in. Well, speaking of games, let's move on to players who could impact new players. So let's do a quick recap. We're going to